with it, in the hood with it. Welcome back to the Collective Clips, where you already know we get it in. But before we get it in, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Ding. Put your notification bell on all, so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content I am kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support, man. We're going up on this channel, and it's all because of you. And for that, I can say I'm very humbled, and I'm very much so appreciative. So thank you so much. I know I couldn't do it without you. Gracias. So I wanted to tell a story. A story I was reminded of by one of my primos. You know, we're chopping it up, and he likes to hear little prison stories, and that's my way of keeping him out the mix. He's a youngster. He's like 14, 15 years old. So whenever I can give him Clecha or the game, I try. I mean, if you're not one trying to help your own familia, I don't know who the fuck you are, right? First and foremost, I try to help as many people as I can and give them, you know, diamonds, jewels, you know, some knowledge they can't get in college. But at the end of the day, I can't dictate their program. But with my family, I'm going to try to dictate their program. That's just what it is. Because use me, use this for an example. Someone who made a lot of fucking mistakes in life, was headed down that wrong road and decided, you know what, Sasuke, this road, there's too many potholes. I'm going to go cruise over here. It's smoother, right? And that's just my thing. But without poisoning the situation, because I would never do that, I allow people to make their own choices. But I will definitely give them input into them choices. So I always tell him prison stories. He always asks me, you know, and I think he likes the drama. He's a youngster, not an Edgar, but a youngster. But at the same time, he also understands the realities of what it is. So it reminded me of a story that I've never told that I wanted to tell. You know, about two groups that are really not spoken on too much on YouTube. And one of the groups is the Nazi Lowriders. Okay, a white group who I've spoken on in the past, of white men that actually their first name was the Southern Alliance. And later on, they changed it, man, to the Nazi Lowriders. It was a group or a gang, an organization that was formed in the California Youth Authority and then spread its wings in prison. It gained a notorious, treacherous reputation in the California system, and actually was looked at by administration as becoming one of the big four, you know, actually the big five. But it never got that much of a foothold, man. It was shut down quickly. There still are Nazi lowriders, just not as much as there used to be back in the days. And I know in the system, I was told when I was laced up by homies, these guys were targets for us, right? If we could identify an NLR on the yard, get off. But most of these guys were validated, slammed back in the shoe, given an indeterminate, and you never really seen them. But every once in a while, one would go to court, or you would see them, you know, in a oil on an overflow or a layover. Whatever the case may be, that was about the only chance you'd get to see these guys, unless you were back there in the dungeons in the shoe in Corcoran, in Pelican Bay doing time. Then they were pretty deep. There was different offshoots and they had different cliques and things going on. But that was their business. I didn't pay too much attention to that. I know the history of them and I respect them vatos. You know, I remember a few of them did hit the yards before, flying under the radar, and they would get off immediately. They would get their soldados together, and the men LRs were with the shits, okay, for a long time. There's also another group that no one really speaks about. I think I did a video about them in the past as well. And they were called the Sucka Free Norteños, right? They were a dropout gang. They were a dropout gang that didn't make it to SNY. They were more so on the 50-50 yards. Now, there was a difference between the 50-50 yards in the California system. I don't think there's any 50-50 yards anymore compared to the SNY. Okay, now the SNY yards, you got a lot of different groups, a lot of different gangs that are there. And it's wild, wild west, right? They're over there doing whatever they do, extorting, fighting amongst each other, politicking, whatever, right? Whereas on the 50-50 yards, it was still maintained. There was still paperwork being checked. There was still individuals. You couldn't be a rat. You couldn't have certain cases. You just weren't going over there because a 50-50 yard meant that there were active individuals on that yard, but the Norteños weren't, or the Southsiders weren't. You know, they had 50-50 yards that were Southern 50-50 yards, 50-50 yards that were Bulldog 50-50 yards, 50-50 yards that were Northerner 50-50 yards. And there was a lot of gangs that were being formed and groups. And one of them that was pretty big, and this is pre-Northern Riders, or around the same time that Northern Riders were formed, was the Sucka Free Norteños. And there was a lot of them. There was a lot of them from the Central Valley, a few of them from the Bay. But my interaction with them went like this. I was on a 50-50 yard with Sucka Frees, right? And they were the ones that when you would get there, right? I remember getting there after my career was washed up, it was over. And I went to Jamestown. And I got to the 3-yard, which was a 50-50 yard at the time. And I was on alert. You know, I'd never been posted on a yard like this, so I didn't know the get down. I didn't know if it was going to be all trash. And, you know, I wasn't going to function like that. If there was fucking a chomo just right there in front of me, I was going to sock him, right? So I get to the yard, and about 6 dudes walk up to me. And I could tell, you know, by their haircuts, their mannerisms, they were norteños, or once were. Now, I was under the assumption everyone there was non-active. Everyone there fell off for whatever reason, right? But the way these guys approached me, they approached me like any norteño would on a main line, on a GP, right? And they came up to me and they posted on me. And they were like, hey, homie, you know what I mean? Are you active? That's the first thing they asked me. And I was like, what do you mean, right? Because I didn't know if they were going to get off on me no matter what I said. So, you know, my antennas had to be up. So I'm like, why, what's up? And they were like, are you active, homie? And I said, well, I'm here, right? You know, so it's shit. That should tell you right there. So they were like, all right, you know, because, hey, we don't allow actives on this yard, active northerners, right? Because there was active whites and blacks and Usos and natives on that yard. There wasn't southerners on that yard. And even if there was southerners on a 50-50 yard, their politics are not northern politics. So whatever northerners got going on, that's on them. They're just doing them, right? You know, that's the misconception. People they say, oh man, the active southerners weren't on 50-50 yards. They were, as long as there was no non-active southerners on that yard. They were on them yards. That's a fact, right? So anyways, what they would do was these Sucka Frees and all these dudes that came up on me, most of them were from the gang Sucka Free. They would post up on you and wait 3 days. See, because traditionally the northerners at that time had 72 hours to get off. You go to a trash yard or a bad yard, you have 72 hours to identify a target and get off. And most vatos will get off in R&R. They'll get off right off the bus. They're not even trying to make it to the yard and embrace that shit. But there are those that will sit down on a target for a couple of days, milk it, play the role, and then boom, get off where they're mad at in the chow hall. Somewhere preferably where it could be shut down quick, right? And everyone could see it. But anyway, so I get there, whatever. They post up on me. I start to realize that these guys are part of a gang called Sucka Free that are basically disgruntled norteños, and they felt a lot of these dudes were removed unjustified, or they felt that way, right? The ones that I interacted with. And I didn't want to be a part of or associated with any type of gang. Once you're gone from the majors, you don't go to the minors. That's just always been the way I thought. Not the way I was gamed up, because I was never told about that. I assumed, man, hey, these guys are doing whatever they're doing for whatever reason. They're trying to still carry the norteño flag or, you know, using the norteño label. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to fucking do me, do some burpees, press some concrete and push up out of here, right? That's, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it to the fullest for the gente that it counts for, right? I'm not going to do it for that. One thing that these dudes were doing, right, was saying active would come. They'd run up on them, hey, are you active? And if the vato displayed the characteristics of an active gang member, they would get off. They had the pass to jump on them, stomp them out, beat them up, stab them, whatever. And the cops wouldn't do shit. The cops let them do that, man. It was unfortunate. And in some cases, man, I used to look at the active homies like that. I felt bad because I was once on that side. So I felt like, damn, bro, why are they doing the homies like that? How are you going to have the norteño label and do another northerner like that? I didn't respect that, right? But it was what it was. I had nothing bad to say about the Sucka Frees other than they were handling their business to the best of their abilities. So the story goes like this. That was just a quick rundown on those two groups. I was in Susanville. And at this time, man, I was going through my shit. And I had just fucking been placed in the hole from getting off on the yard, some red on red. And so I knew my career was washed up. That was it for me, right? So the northerners they had on one side of the building in the hole, they moved me to the other side of the building, right? That's where they had non-active northerners or whatever. And I noticed it was a little bit louder on that side. Vatos would bump baking soda breath on the doors, woof and shit. I didn't care for that. I was more so the type, just give me a good Louis L'Amour book or a Jackie Collins so I can handle my business. And I'm going to do my thing, right? So I remember I had a cellie at that time. He was an Asian. Good, solid dude, man. Never really asked him, you know, why he was, you know, going to ICC. I knew he had a good case. I seen his paperwork. Whatever his business was between the Asians, it was his business. Later on, I found out, man, you know, he got into a gambling debt with another ethnicity, not ethnicity, an ethnicity and another race, right, or whatever you want to call it. And instead of paying them, he took flight. So now he was in a position, if he went back to the yard, he was a target. So whatever, right? I didn't judge him because I didn't know him. But we were cool in there. And I was surrounded by Sucka Freeze, right? Sucka Freeze. And they used to holler it at night. They had their own program shut down, Sucka Free, and they would do that. And there was one in particular from Modesto, right? Little youngster from Modesto too. And he's banging on my wall. And he's like, hey, homie, can I get at you? Where you from? So I said, I'm from Merced. What's up, bro? So we start to become cool. And I start giving him the rundown on why I'm in the situation I'm in. And he was like, damn, that's ugly, bro. I can't believe the homies did you like that. I said, you know, it is what it is, bro. It's part of the game. You know, some things are cool, some things ain't. And I'm in the ain't cool pod right now, right? But it's all good, man. I'm going to survive. And that's all that matters. And he starts to give me the rundown because you got to understand everything was new to me. I was used to general population. I was used to fucking being around canalismo, brotherhood, being around homeboys. I didn't know nothing else, right? So now I had to learn on the fly a little bit of everything. And it's hard in the California system. There's so much shit going on. Not only do you have to stay aware of who you're talking to, because motherfuckers could rock you to sleep and whack you, right? You just have to be aware. That's all I can say on that. But so I'm chopping it up with him. I get to know him. I know some of his family from Modesto. He knows some of mine from Turlock and Modesto. And it's crazy. He knows one of my tios real well. And so we're chopping up about that. And I'm surrounded by these vatos. There's 2 cells of Sucka Freeze on one side, 2 or 3 on the other. So they're doing their thing. So he starts trying to lace me up, and he shoots me a wheela. Hey, shoot your line, homie. He shoots me a sopa, and then he tries to shoot me his indoctrination. Basically, hey, this is what we are, homie. What's up? And I'm like, I'm good, bro. You know, I'm going through the motions over here. I got ICC. I don't know where they're gonna send me. I don't know nothing. I'm just gonna go wherever I'm told to go and figure it out when I get there. So he's like, hey, don't go SNY, bro. Don't go to the SNY yards. Don't do that shit. There's chiruhus and this and that over there and chomos and I'm like, yeah, and he's giving me the rundown. He was like, nah, Charlie, bro, go to a 50-50 yard. When you go to committee, tell him, hey, don't sign the chrono. Don't tell him, say, I ain't going to SNY. Refuse that shit, and they'll send you to a 50-50 yard, bro, and there's hella homies over there, and it's all good. Still checking paperwork, still solid, you know, just not under the prison organization's thumb, right? And I was like, well, the shit, that's like, he was like, it's like old school, bro, pre-97, back in the days, bro, how it was, where homeboys just, you know, we're all together. And we weren't all structured up, forced to do shit or whatever, right? He's spitting his propaganda. I'm hearing him, but I'm already laced up enough to know that he's trying to poison some shit. Whatever. So anyways, there's on the other side, there's the active gang members, and there's a couple Nazi lowriders. And I guess they had caught a pegada in High Desert, these 2 dudes. So they were fucking, what they had done was they had moved them, I guess, the High Desert Oyo at that time. Northerners, my brother was there. Norteños and the Kumis from the Bay Area, the blacks from the Bay, they were getting off with each other viciously. They were filling up the Oyo. The Oyo was getting fucking filled with blacks and Northerners, right? Fighting each other. And so these 2 dudes who were Nazi lowriders, they had come down from the Bay, and because they did a pegada in High Desert, went up to the Bay, caught their case or whatever they were on appeal, so they were coming back for court. So instead of keeping them there in High Desert, they placed these guys, because I don't know if they're victims or whatever. There was someone that fucking had a 1030 them, right? So something like that from what I heard. So they placed them in Susanville in the Oyo, which is right across the street from High Desert, right? And that's where they were doing their time. So as I would see them go to the shower, you know, I see the NLR tattoos, and I was like, I seen them on the active side, so I automatically assumed, oh shit, those are a couple Nazi lowriders. You don't see them too much, like I said, unless you're in the shoe. So I would trip out on them. I'd tell my cellie, hey, look, it's a couple of NLRs, whatever, right? They're like unicorns in prison. So anyways, they'd conduct themselves with respect, go to the shower, holler at their gente, their people, the woods. And that was that. But these Sucka Freeze, every time they would come out, anytime any actives would come out, they would woof. They would talk shit. You know, they would disrespect actives. And when actives would do their program shut down, the whites, the black, Crips, Bloods, North, even South, right? These dudes would yell over them and scream over them. And I just never understood the get down. You know, if you don't like a vato, just shut the fuck up and deal with it when you see them. But let me explain to you what happened. So the Sucka Freeze, they got it to a point where they had their own yard. If you were a part of their little group, you had your own yard. And I tripped out. They would skip right over my cell and go to their side. I was like, damn, like that? I don't get no yard today. And the cop would be like, you're going to get yard later. And they would put me on the yard in a group yard with like non-affiliates, basically vatos that weren't playing the fucking SNY or the 50-50 gang game, you know, the dropout gangs. I wasn't part of that, so I was just going there with a couple Asians, a couple paisas, fucking a black or 2. There was very rarely any blacks, right? couple wives, whatever, right? Workout. They were all solid. No chomos, no rapos, no nothing like that. We'd have fucking eliminated them immediately. Well, anyways, these Nazi lowriders, they would hear this shit. So they started to develop a plan, plotting. These are two killers right here. Two lifers. They're in the shoe. They're doing fucking whole time already. It ain't nothing to them than to take a little ride or maybe catch another court case and go out there and see if they can see a chick wearing Daisy Dukes on the streets, right? There's dudes in prison that will catch a pegada just to take a ride through downtown. That's a fact. There are lifers without the possibility. They're never going to see outside of the walls. The only time they get a chance at seeing outside of the walls is when they go to outside medical or they're transferred to another prison. So these dudes, their only sense of freedom is catch a case. Fuck it. Stab a dude to death so I can go into town and go look at the local foster freeze. I won't get none, but I can smell it, right? That's how serious it is in prison. That's what people don't understand, that there's vatos that are willing to go that far just to smell some fucking a foster freeze fucking whatever burger they make, right? It's crazy shit when you really think about it. So these guys, I guess, were plotting, whatever. Like I said, they're on the other side of the building. And these sucker freeze, every time, homies, they yell and scream over people. And it got to the point where the little homie from Modesto that I used to chop it up with, I kind of distanced myself from the door. He used to bang like, hey, bro, hey. And I just ignore him. My cellie be like, hey, I think your homie wants you. I said, nah, that ain't my homie, bro. That dude's fucking on some sucker shit, right? Not sucker free shit, but sucker shit. I didn't like to get down. They weren't all like that. They weren't all like that, man. But the few that were around me were. They were all young kids, rambunctious and stupid like that. So anyways, in this particular oil, there was a lot of cops there that were old school. They didn't play the shit. If you disrespected them, they would find ways to open up doors. They would find ways to put you in a bad situation. I told you guys a story about the dude that fucking got with the 2 fivers and he got put in the fucking cage and it was on and cracking, right? This is the same place. And like I said, they had these cages where they do potty watch or they'd place you until they can get you a cell in the middle of the day room. So anyways, I remember this day, man. What they would do is, like I said, they had their own group yard, the sucker freeze. So there was a lot of chaos going on. And I guess one of the sucker freeze men had disrespected a cop or got into an argument with the K9. And you can't do that. You can't do that because all of a sudden, they have ways of touching you without touching you. They have ways of making things happen. Oops, it was a mistake. Oops, I did it again, like a Britney Spears song before her pussy looked like a cabbage, right? There was just so many different things that they could do. And they did that frequently. And you'd see fights like, damn, this is the oil. Fools are not supposed to come out at the same time, but they did all the time, right? So anyways, these Nazi lowriders were planning their thing. So they fashioned them up a couple little fucking riff-raff pieces, right? Whatever they can get. And we're talking about 2 dudes that are seasoned. You just don't become a Nazi lowrider overnight, man. There's a lot of things, I'm sure. I don't know their politics, but there's a lot of things I'm sure you have to go through. And you're going to be seasoned before you're a part of that organization, that group, right? And you're going to be a hitter. You're going to have bodies and all kinds of different things, right? Now, these sucker frees weren't like that. A lot of them were youngsters, first-termers, didn't make it to pass the level 2, but thought they were cool, thought they were tough. They had all these sucker free tattoos. They would get the San Francisco Giants sign or the 49ers sign on their head, their face. And like I said, this was before Northern Riders blew up. A lot of these guys, Northern Riders absorbed the sucker free. You don't see that gang anymore. It's kind of like, I don't think they're out there anymore unless dudes paroled and they still push that line. But this gang kind of was absorbed into the Northern Riders, and that's what they became, right? But anyway, so this particular day, these 2 NLRs were going to go to the shower. So they were doing yard too as well. They were doing group yard, and it was sucker freeze group yard, right? So as they're pushing these dudes, the dude from Modesto, I forget who his celly was, man. I think it was another vato from Motown. And then on the right-hand side, there was a guy named Fast Eddie, right? Now, Fast Eddie was well known. I think from what I heard, the history, he started sucker freeze, right? He's pretty well known because he's one of the guys that, if you've heard some of the stories, that Vato Lencho, who was once part of a prison organization but is not in good standings, he tricked Lencho to go up to his door and allegedly was one of the vatos that sliced him, right? Now, I interviewed a vato who said he was the one who did it, but the story was out there that Fast Eddie did it, right? For years. Anyways, that vato Eddie was there. Fast Eddie was there in the oil, and he was like leading the troops, right? So these vatos wanted to get at him. They wanted to get at him, right? But that vato Eddie was too seasoned, paprika'd up, right? too laced up to, it was hard for even the NF to catch that dude, right? So anyways, these Vatos come out. They're running group yard. This rookie ass cop's running group yard. Him and an old school cop. And he holds, like, there's 4 sucker frees coming out. He holds them back. You know, they got him fucking holding back like, hey, wait. And they're taking the fucking Nazi lowriders out of their cell. I don't know why they didn't wait, right? At the same time that they're fucking bringing these dudes out. But they're way on the other side of the building. It's a 270 design, right? So if you really want to get somewhere, you got to take off running. It's a long distance, man. It says no warning shots there. You're going to get your ass shot up, right? You think these Vatos care? They're lifers. Any action they get, they got, right? Man, all of a sudden you hear, hey, get down, get down. These Vatos took off running. As they're running cuffed up, and the cops are chasing them, they're using their cuff keys. Boom. One of them gets out. The other one doesn't. The other one does the flying fucking judo kick. Das, right? Hey, these sucker frees are all cuffed up. They don't got cuff keys. They're not prepared like that. So they kind of back away. The cops, hands-off policy. They're like, fuck you, right? This Vatos pull out a piece. One of the NLRs wasn't able to pull out his piece. He's trying to uncuff his shit, and he's kicking this dude that's tripped and fell, right? The little homie from Modesto's on the ground getting stomped, bro. I'm watching, like, right in front of my door, like, try to tell you, bro, all that shit. That dude, Eddie, took off to the corner and uncuffed his shit and pulled out a big old fucking RV. It was like fucking 8 or 9 blades taped to a fucking thing and got to fucking running up, right? But he wasn't doing nothing. He was just like holding his ground, like, what's up, right? One Nazi lowrider was handcuffed. He was stomping one of the sucker frees up. The other ones, I ain't even gonna lie, they took off running, left their homeboy right there, and the other one was just getting them. They're doomed. The cops started shooting the rubber bullets. Boom! And you could hear them shoot, and they'd hit the ricochet off the concrete ground and hit all the walls. They have like these little balls. They were hella loud. They were just shooting boom, boom, boom. Then, of course, cops came in, broke it all up. Moral of the story is, don't bump baking soda breath behind the door. You know, that right there, after seeing shit like that, I was like, damn. I lost a lot of respect for them sucker free dudes because I was like, these Vatos ain't really with the business. Like, as soon as shit popped off, one of them was in the corner. He could have easily ran up and started fucking slicing, but he's like, fuck that. I'm over here holding my own. And then the other 2 ran, and the other little homie got stomped. The one that I was cool with, right? That's how I beat it. Anyways, I ended up getting to Jamestown after that incident. I was telling them about it, and they were like, oh, yeah, that fool fucking from Modesto, the one that got stomped out. Yeah, he's no good. He's on the SNY now. I said, what? Why? Yeah, nah, we don't do that shit, bro. He laid down and let them fools get him. I said, Charlie, bro. What about the 2 dudes that ran and the other Vato that didn't do shit? He was the only one that tried it. That Vato just kicked him. You know what I mean? But he tried at least. At least he was fucking wiggling. He was cuffed. They're like, yeah, that's sucker shit. We don't do that. And I was like, They're like, we're sucker free. I was like, oh shit. Anyways, man, I never was affiliated or part of that shit. I would just see it from a distance. But I'll never forget, man. Them Nazi lowriders ain't no joke. You know, that was one of the only times I got to see them in action besides I was out of state. And I ran into one, man, and he was biting people's noses off and shit. He was with the business. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the stories. Truth and reality. This is why you don't go to prison. There's a lot of different things going on, a lot of moving parts, man. You might think you're cool or it's cool, but it really isn't, right? Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I honestly and truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people, man. I tell you these stories not to glorify or shine light on prison stickings and stabbings and all that, but more so for you to understand, if you're in that life, exactly what you're getting yourself into. Because once someone got you on the ground and they're hitting you with the piece, homie, that shit hurts. Believe me, I know. The gun.